Welcome to another episode of the Tigers Minor League Report, Week 6 recap here at tigersmlreport.com. I am Rogelio. Alongside me is Brandon Day. No Chris Brown this evening, as Chris is just relaxing. It was a little under the weather, so sends his regards. We're going to be talking more about the Tigers today than the minor leagues, because the minor leagues, don't get me wrong, there's plenty going on in the minor leagues, but the 2-1 loss to Cleveland, the opener, the Tigers have now lost 4 in a row. The panic button is big and red, and it's going to be pushed here soon, you would hope. But yeah, Brandon, it was tough watch tonight. You felt pretty good after Riley Reed home run, but then you also realized you in the back area going, shit. This is Cleveland, and they have a really good pitching staff.
Yeah, I mean, every time you play them, it's like, it's an 8-inning game, it feels like, because you're not getting to Class A. So, yeah, once you're behind and it gets into those middle innings, you start feeling the crunch there more than anywhere else. But, I mean, there were some pretty good at-bats tonight. Obviously, Canna got screwed. There was a couple of pretty bad at-bats from the home plate umpire's perspective. Didn't do very well back there. But, it's the same old story. Torkelson, I thought, looked better tonight, like took a couple of pretty good swings, but nothing to show for it, just routine fly balls. Keith had a hit. So, modest progress, it's frustrating. I mean, we kind of knew, that this team was going to be like this. And this is one of the most frustrating kind of teams to watch, where the pitching staff is good enough to win just about every night. But they're all going to be low-scoring games, and you're waiting for something to happen with this offense to trigger them and get them going. But I kind of thought maybe going into Cleveland would do that. You're kind of looking for just like last year, looking for signs that this team is different than the old Tigers and are going to flip the script. And beating up on Cleveland is going to have to be part of that recipe if they're ever going to get anywhere. And yeah, Jack Flaherty throws a really good game. Tristan McKenzie is, effectively wild against us, like he always seems to be, every time we face that dude. Barely in the strike zone. And, it's just a hell of a thing when you build a team to be built around plate discipline and then the umpires suck, It just feels like, what are we doing here? So, yeah, not a fun loss. But, I mean, the game itself was fine. If we weren't coming off a sweep in New York, I wouldn't bat an eye. But, yeah, pretty frustrating game.
It was a frustrating game, and Jesus was terrible. He did a terrible job at the plate. But before we get into that, I want to thank our friends over at BetOnline. Is your number one source for all summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and the NHL playoffs. By the way, Game 7, Boston-Toronto was a beautiful game. It was the first playoff game I've watched all year, and it was great to see. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get on the action. Bet online when the game starts. And yeah, the game, the biggest thing about McKenzie too is he has the ability to hit that high part of the strike zone and gets the guys to swing and miss too. But you look at some of the at-bats today, Kerry Carpenter with the double, but then even if you look at Berlin, Carpenter, and Torkelson had a hit. He had a couple doubles. We'll get to him in the Yankees series here in a second, because we did write an article about possibly replacing him. And I know a lot of fans want more blood. I mean, they want replacements. And there's, and again, rightfully so. You can understand that to a certain extent. Parker Meadows now is, at some point, you have to figure out what you're going to do with Parker Meadows, who's now batting under 100. So, yeah, it's just, today was just like the bottom. Wow, that's a stat here from, let's see here. bottom of the lineup from R1 versus J4, 8 for 89 before this game. And then I guess you had a comment right here, Brandon, from 7 commenters in the BYB game threads are employed to peddle FUD and negativity. You'll who know they are.
Yeah, we just had a big kerfuffle over the weekend because there's a lot of people just absolutely spamming some of the game threads with no actual commentary, just this sucks, that sucks, f this, f that, which to a certain extent I expect, but yeah, it's just kind of like the early season thing that we seem to go through every year where we have a lot of new people and everybody's enthused, and I don't know, maybe sports talk radio or someone convinces the people that the Tigers are going to be a juggernaut this year, and then they're absolutely furious from the jump. So yeah, we always seem to have like a yearly clearing of the air around this time for whatever reason. It's better than the normal way this goes, which is just that all those people just bounce as soon as we get to May because the team is so bad. That's the way it's been the last 6 or 7 years. But yeah, all the classics were played. We're paid by the team, and we don't allow dissent from our super positive opinions, which included me, being optimistic and saying they might win 83, 84 games, that kind of thing.
Well, it's even interesting too, is that
it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And even like writing about Spencer Torkelson, for example, about replacement and just trying to be reasonable about that. And I think McCoskey did a good job of trying to say, hey, look, this guy is trying. It's not like, and that's what we're saying too. But the alternatives, like in terms of their, what are you going to do? I mean, there's a certain amount of things where you can go, okay, well, you can call up Kirsten Hurta, and that's fine. But what is it going to solve? And replace as Deadly Ninja Bees indicated, there has to be something being done. I mean, you would hope so, but at the same time, I think what it is when you see sports talk radio go, they point out the averages, everything, and they don't offer a solution. That's when people get mad, and I think that's understandable. Sure. Like like for example, we're looking at some of the batted ball data, and we went a little deeper in our Torkelson article because we wanted to show, okay, what is there. What really is in there? What are the meat potatoes that are versus just going? No, you got to be realistic with this stuff, and it's just like the one thing about the last couple of days, especially coming back from New York, the biggest takeaway I've had is that the Tigers, if they can maintain this pitching, then I think they'll be fine. I mean, the pitching is there. It was Joey Wentz. I was looking at his last 6-7 appearances. He's done better. You want some more swing and miss stuff, but I mean, today was a prime example of that. Today he was like, all right, 62% strikes. He's going in there, throwing strikes, and that's all you can ask for. And
I'm pretty far from a Joey Wentz believer, but the fact that I've barely heard his name mentioned tells me that he's been doing okay.
Yeah, because I mean, what was it? Foley blew a save on Friday, and people were like, "Oh, he sucks." You haven't been watching baseball season, so shut up. And I understand go ahead, Brandon.
Well, it's just it's just not really worth addressing this. For the most part, I mean, maybe it has to be addressed. I don't know, to some degree, but a lot of people are not that interested in baseball, and that's perfectly fine. They want to see good baseball from the Tigers, but there's just always that clash between like the actual baseball people who are watching other teams and realize that all these teams go through struggles. It's not like all these other teams are just absolutely raking. I keep pointing out that the Tigers coming into tonight were, 20th in run scoring, which is not good. But, there's 10 teams worse than them. This is what it's like. Pitching at the major league level is freaking sick right now. If you follow the Pitching Ninja on Twitter, Rob is very busy every night because there's just so much good pitching out there. But, yeah, I mean, when it comes to, Torkelson, Keith, all those guys, there's just two perspectives that are going to clash here. And that's the short-term perspective of people who are like, well, it sucks. We should be winning games. We should be doing whatever it takes right now, to replace these guys because they're pretty replaceable right now. I mean, you can find a first baseman, I've got a first baseman. I'll sell you for $350 in my coat pocket. It's not that hard to replace that. It's not that hard to replace Keith's production right now. But the point is, and this is what this whole thing is building to, is that the Tigers are trying to build a long-term contender here, and you can't do that by just cutting bait on two people that you more or less have built in as part of your core in the beginning of May. You just can't. Right. If they were, if they were both striking out a ton, if Keith and Torkelson just looked completely overwhelmed and like they couldn't even like manage an approach against major league pitching, yeah, you got to send them down. And that's kind of where Meadows is. Meadows' strikeout rate is pretty close to 40%. They're not playing him very much, and that's not going to help him. So if in his case, yeah, maybe he needs to go down and just play every day, get his timing back and get it going. But I don't know what going to the minor leagues does for Spencer Torkelson or Colt Keith right now. And I don't know what it does for the Tigers organization. So, they can shuffle some pieces. They could bring up Malloy. They can play Canna at first base. If they want to give Badu a look for a little bit and send Parker down, they could try that. It sounds like Urshela is probably going to be about a week away, but, Gio Urshela doesn't make that much of a difference to me one way or the other. Right. They just don't have a lot of options. And, at a certain point, you have to figure it out. You can't just go make the OOTP trade that you hope for in early May to make something happen. And somebody on this team's got to figure this out. Someone in the hitting department's got to figure out why they never ambush starting pitchers and why they're completely unprepared, to make adjustments throughout these outings. They lost James Rowson, who was their assistant hitting coach, not even one of their two main hitting coaches. He was hired by the Yankees this offseason to be their main hitting coach. The Tigers went out and got an assistant from the Boston Red Sox, Lance Sawadsky, who's been, in their farm system for a while, and I think might have been a driveline guy. And
it was a driveline guy.
Yeah, and the Red Sox, are producing quite a few young hitters. A lot of guys are going there and doing well. So, at least they did the right thing and went and tried to find someone from a good org. I mean, that's what you did with Berter and with Keith Beauregard. They were well-regarded hitting coaches, but for whatever reason, like these guys are not making adjustments to the starting pitching, and this team is scrapping out like 1 or 2 runs against the starter, maybe. And then they're having to win against the bullpen. And all that time, the pitching's got to be kind of perfect to win those games. Not telling anybody anything they don't know. But, does calling up Keston Hiura change anything now? Not really. He's probably a little bit better defensive first baseman, which is a weird thing to say than Torkelson, but not by much. No, and he's not he's not hitting. So,
No, and he's not even in one of the things I looked up. One of the things I looked up for the article was how is he doing against high velocity? And he's not, and you're not seeing a lot of that high velocity down there. But when he does, he's not hitting it. He's not hitting it for it's just in terms of just getting that for that production. The biggest thing that one of the things that somebody's going to sit here and say, well, look what the Padres did. They got Luis Ariz from Miami. Well, Miami is a dumpster fire. Like I don't know, Miami is just doing what Miami always does. They somehow. Miami, I don't understand how Miami goes from a playoff team to just looking like one of the worst teams in the National League. Like, you think they signed Tim Anderson? Like, okay, this team's not gonna be that bad. They got the pitching, they got the young pitching, but they can't keep them healthy. And then, so Ariz is gonna be a guy who's already gonna immediately contribute. And the best part about that too, Padres got Miami to pay for the whole salary. It's genius. It's masterclass. So people are gonna sit there and say,
they did give up, a pretty good haul to get him. And that's where, the rubber hits the road. Like the Padres are desperate, like they built this team and they've been theoretically a contender for 4 years now, maybe almost 5, maybe. And they haven't done squat really. So they're scrambling over there. They've already kind of burnt through the farm system and they continue to do so, but they're not getting anywhere with it. And the Tigers aren't there yet. They're not there yet to where adding this one dude is going to turn things around. Luis Ariz would be nice to have, but he's not he's not going to change the game for them that much either. So if they want to make moves, you can replace Torkelson and Keith with 50 odd utility men on major league teams who are probably putting up better numbers than they are right now. But long term, is that the right thing to do? I highly doubt it. So I'd love to see them make a big trade. There's, I've been saying that for 2 years. There's really no way they're going to get this thing to the status of a contender without really making a big trade. But to me, that's not Luis Ariz. That's like laying in the weeds until, someone, you're not going to get Mookie Betts perhaps, but someone on that level is available and then going all in with the farm system to get that person. But, picking up, another solid player. Yeah, they probably should do that if they can. But do you want to give up, you're not going to give up Jackson Jobe, obviously, but do you want to trade Jace Young for, Luis Ariz right now? Like,
I'm waiting for that Lynn Henning article on.
I don't really want to do those things yet because I don't think they're close enough to really bother yet. So,
I was just gonna say, or I'm waiting for Lynn Henning to say trade Tarek Skubal for prospects.
Fernando Tatis Jr.
Fernando Tatis Jr. or Alex Berman. That's what
Yeah.
he's gonna say.
Right.
I'm waiting for it. I'm just
I
waiting.
love Alex Bregman. I mean, that'd be great. I
Yeah.
do have Alex Bregman in the back of my mind. Like if Colt Keith turns this around and gets hitting and Torkelson can produce something, suddenly you've got yourself probably a major league average offense again, which is, about the ceiling probably that most of us would have expected. And then, then maybe you do think about making a trade, more of a rental type trade. But, right now, you kind of got to work with what you got and figure your way out of this thing. And if this is going to go spiraling into another 9-game losing streak like they had to start last June, well, they aren't ready. They aren't ready to do anything. And, scrambling to patch this thing up without, internally having the pieces to get anywhere right now just seems kind of, I don't know, hasty, panicky, and somewhat pointless because it's probably not going to do much for you. And you're just going to hurt your farm system.
I like what Walter said here. And he said the biggest question is why Harris gets a year and a half to fix a team, and the fan base gives Scotty or Yzerman and Brad Holmes so much more time. You know what? That's it. And honestly, that's a fair question because if you think about it from the standpoint of, well, Steve Yzerman is the hometown guy. So he's going to, in terms of what Harris has inherited, in terms of like, let's just look behind the scenes here for a moment because you and I have seen this firsthand. You first and foremost, it starts with the fact that as far as like them making major improvements to the facility, like everybody's like, well, who cares about the facilities down in like Lakeland and all these things? Food, it does matter. I mean, these guys were getting peanut butter sandwiches for the longest period of time.
Right. There's one personal trainer available. There's one, physical therapist that 100 different guys have to try to get in to see. All that sort of thing. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, I know what you're saying. Like it was the Tigers were burnt down to the weeds in 2017 as far as the farm system was concerned. It was the facilities. It was obviously the talent. There was almost none. They didn't have the coaches. They had a lot of old school people who'd been around forever in the organization and didn't do anything. I mean, they had to start from scratch. I guess what I'd say is, they didn't give Brad Holmes that long. I mean, people were screaming at him from the moment.
But the Lions fans
but he got 2 years. But in that second year, they showed something. And if the Tigers turn out, to post an above 500 record this year, then Scott Harris is going to feel that same pressure. But he's not going to be like, "Oh, get him out of here." People are frustrated right now just because this whole thing has taken so long. But Scott Harris wasn't gonna fix it all in a year. No, on the other hand,
no, not 1 year.
I might argue on the other hand too that he had more to work with in certain senses. They didn't do a very good job of it, but they've been picking high in the draft for 7 years. You've got Kerry Carpenter, you got Riley Green, you got Tarek Skubal, Casey Mize is nothing special, but and you've got a coaching staff that's experienced. I mean, there's enough to work with where I'm not trying to give them like 3 or 4 years here, but I think we're all kind of angling for next year.
Either. No, I'm not giving that much leash either. I mean, the thing is that in terms of like, and Stan says, you do realize that Parker has a higher WAR than Torque and Colt. Yeah, but you're batting under 100. That's the point. You also have to hit at some point.
Sure. I mean, he is useful. I mean, it's
I'm not saying he's not useful. I'm not saying he's useless or anything like that, but at some point you have to do something to help him get back his confidence. If he has to take some at bats, of all the three names mentioned that should go back to Toledo to get some sort of like reprieve, maybe it's Parker Meadows.
Yeah, I think you start with Parker out for Gio Urshela, and then you probably give Keith and Torkelson another, 2 weeks or something like that to see if they can start, finding the barrel. It's messed up that you can not strike out, walk a decent amount, not chase out of the zone, and you can't get the ball in the barrel hardly at all. Like, what the hell's going on here? We've had plenty of discussions about Torkelson's mechanics. I've been looking at his ASU footage. I know our buddy Mr. Garage is looking at all that stuff. His swing hasn't changed that much, but it definitely isn't what it was then. And I don't know, does anyone in the Tigers organization give anyone confidence in being able to fix the hitting? And I think if we're going to hone in on Scott Harris and the organization, that's where I've got a problem right now, because the hitters don't look prepared. Even the guys who are swinging the bat pretty well don't look terribly prepared against the starting pitching most nights. And, is Torkelson trying things? I'll say this, like tonight, he did look like he was finally setting his hands down when he went to load, rather than some of this, like he's reaching back and he's already like moving forward and getting all disjointed. At ASU, like the hands just moved back a little bit and he was right underneath. I mean, he was just flipping it over. He actually looked more like Kerry Carpenter in a certain sense, had the bat tipped a little bit, knob toward the catcher, all that cute stuff. He looked different, and I don't know if they should be trying to work him back toward those mechanics a little bit more or what it is, because it's just his timing. His swing decisions haven't been great, but he's not chasing out of the zone. He's just not on time. He's never on time this year. So
no, when you're missing 93, 92, that's just a timing issue. And I mean, somebody's talking about like a groove swing and what have you, but it's look.
Yeah, I mean, there is some of that, but he's always been that way,
Right. I mean, the thing that really makes me mad though is that when Chris McCoskey posted him taking batting practice, and everybody takes batting practice, it's like the point. Chris was trying to make it simple. The guy's still trying to work on his game, and he actually leads the American League in doubles. Spencer Torkelson leads the American League in doubles.
Yeah.
So it's
he doesn't look like utterly and totally lost to me. He just looks out of sync, but I can say that, but it is 5 weeks now. So yeah. And he didn't look good in the spring, and more I swear to God, he just reminds me of Justin Upton, like a dude who just goes absolutely nuts for like 6 weeks a year when he's dialed in. And then the rest of the time, it's just a parade of fly balls with enough walks to keep you hanging on. So yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. I don't have the answers. I'm better with pitching than I am with hitting. So, I don't really want to break down his mechanics myself. I'd love to see someone do a great breakdown on that, but yeah, I don't know.
No,
he's gotten it done with some pretty bad looking mechanics to me, most of last summer, and it's just not there right now.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, if you look at for a standpoint before we move to Toledo, because I do want to get to Justin Henry Malloy, because there's a couple questions about Justin Henry Malloy. And you look at Winfield Perez. I mean, if you look at all the negativity with all the reality of things the way they are, despite with everything that's happening, Winfield Perez, who was out sick this weekend, still, I mean, was used batting third, was hitting mistake pitches, he was making right decisions, looking good in the plate. So out of all this stuff, this is the thing. Like, is everybody can get poo all they want about all the bad decisions or all the bad offensive numbers, because you have a right to be. But one thing is certain about Winfield Perez, the guy since the minor leagues, since he became a slap hitter, now no more is it what he is now, has always been able to hit the ball, and it's good to see him getting those opportunities even in center field now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you watch a guy for 8 years in the minor leagues, it comes a time, and we had this time with Parker Meadows, and we've had this time with Gage Workman, who is suddenly perking up a little bit, but where you just kind of wash your hands of a guy and just figure this is never going to happen. Well, Wenzel got there maybe 2021, and he fought through it. He got in the weight room, got stronger, made some slight adjustments to his mechanics, especially in his leg kick, to give himself a little bit more leverage. And all of a sudden, you start to see 105 popping. And when you have a guy who's a pure hitter and has never struck out that much, and you can get him to start driving the ball on the line and in the air a little bit more and showing more pop, I mean, that's the kind of thing that the Dodgers do pretty often, taking guys who aren't known for like necessarily bone crushing power, but like taking a contact hitter who's pretty light hitting, giving him a leg kick and teaching him to hit for a little more power, and all of a sudden you've got like a solid player who hits 20 home runs a year. I don't know if Wenzel's quite that, but at least that one kind of has gone along the principle of what you see from some other teams that do a better job, and that's all to Wenzel's credit, really. But
right.
Kenny Graham seems to be a reasonably good hitting director at the minor league level. At least like some guys have gotten better. It's definitely a lot better than it. Yeah.
And Perez,
it's definitely a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, Perez, and then Workman, which we'll talk about Workman, because I did an article on Workman, and there's some legitimate, like, because the biggest thing for him, and then we'll get to Toledo, what Gage Workman is that he was listening to his dad quite a bit. His dad used to play, and he would go back to his old habits, and he started going more of a toe tapping versus the leg lift, and it's been more consistent with it. And April is his best month And you can sit there and say, well, Roger, it's his third season in Erie. Of course you should, rightfully so. But his strikeouts he's cut down strikeouts and talking to a couple people, the hit data is a lot better. He's always been able to hit the ball hard. But when you're able to reduce your strikeouts and make better contact, that's where it's like, okay, now you have something more interesting to work with, because Workman defensively, he had a couple he's had more errors this year than he normally has, but still, he's still a sound defender. Got good range. But the fact is, take away the fact he's in his third year in Erie for a moment. I mean, take that away for a moment. He's having better at bats, and Erie's offense has been, just put it bluntly, outside of Lee, hasn't been very good. But Workman's bat has been consistent, and we'll get to him. We'll revisit him in a little while, but
yeah. I mean, that kind of gets into Lynn's thing, which we all talked ad infinitum about before the season, that Erie and West Michigan were going to be kind of a black hole for offense. It's like Max Anderson at West Michigan, Luke Gold, and there's not a whole lot more there, and there's not a whole lot at Erie either. But there isn't supposed to be. You're supposed to have Colt freaking Keith, hitting 4, Torkelson hitting 3, Riley hitting 2, and then all you need is a piece or two here and there, and you have yourself a solid offense. But that's the plan, and I don't know, starting out fresh in some other direction is not going to happen right now. Whatever people think about it, it's just not going to happen. So, they've got to figure out a way to get them going. And I have plenty of confidence that Keith will get going. Not worried about Keith. Keith was a much better pure hitter than Spencer Torkelson was in the farm system. Similar raw power. Eventually he's going to figure it out. He's a kid, 22 years old. Spencer Torkelson is 24 in his third years in the big leagues. So I'm going to give Colt Keith plenty of time. And the reason I'm going to give Spencer Torkelson time is because if he can't correct himself at the major league level, and he needs, like a factory reset every time he starts going haywire and they have to send him down, this is never going to work. This is never going to work. And you can get a first baseman. If you want to sign Brandon Belt and JD Martinez right now and make JD your DH, the team would be better. But again, it just comes back to that short-term versus long-term thing. Signing those two guys doesn't do anything for you. In terms of like the Tigers being a World Series contender, or even like a strong division contender in 2025, 26. So you can't just pull the plug on this thing, as I guess, and probably everyone in the chat kind of already knows that. But we have a lot of people screaming at us. I understand. A lot of people are mad. I'm not having that much fun watching this either. The pitching's been great, of course, and watching Riley Green turn into a star is awesome. But I mean, it's been a tough watch. No argument.
Yeah, if Hero can't handle velocity in Toledo, what makes you think you can handle velocity here, Stan? I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but seriously, like, that's looking at the batted ball data. It's not. He's had one hit above 95 miles an hour, or what? He's hit a pitch, a single that was a pitch above 95 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, people need to realize that Keston Hiura is where Spencer Torkelson will be in 4 years if he doesn't figure it out. Keston Hiura is not the answer. If Keston Hiura was raking, I think you'd hear it from both of us. Like, give it a try. Cool Torkelson off for a little bit. But, no one's setting the world on fire down there right yet. And it's kind of too early in the season to expect, Jace Young to be ready. He's still striking out too much. He needs to clean up his approach a little bit. He's off to a really nice season, and people should be, somewhat excited about him. But, he's got a ways to go still. Bigby hasn't really gotten it done. Dingler's swinging a better bat, but is he going to be an improvement over Carson Kelly, who's been terrible? Probably not a whole lot, maybe defensively, but even that, that's going to take some time too. So I don't know. I don't see a lot of moves that are really going to change things, and making moves just to make moves sometimes is necessary, but not this early in the season.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. As much as, although so Chris did post Lynn Henning's State of the Farm System Can't Hit address, which I thought was interesting because I didn't realize that Lynn was watching the minors quite a bit. And let me just address this. No one's giving Spencer Torkelson a free pass, man. I look, if the Tigers would love to get I love the Tigers to get imaginative and use Justin Hemmerloy as a first baseman. Why they haven't, I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing, that he should be getting somebody should be doing something about that. Get imaginative with it, but they haven't, and that's where I don't know what the problem is with that. But real quick, as far as what Henning was saying, some of those things about just he basically poo pooed the entire system, and we've said this. Like there's a few guys, it was going to be rough sledding all year long. I don't think it was that or not obvious to any of us who pay attention. I mean, Young is going to be an adjustment at AAA. You also are looking at, I mean, Malloy can hit. He is able to have a good eye at the plate, but can he hit the ball hard? Can he do these little things like that? Might as well give him a shot. But again, that's where, you have to just give pause on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for giving Malloy a shot at some point here. I mean, he was in AAA all last year and was productive, and we kind of know what the issue is. He struggles to hit breaking balls in the zone. He's got a great eye. He's not chasing out of the zone, but he does swing and miss quite a bit. But I could say that about a lot of guys, and at a certain point, it's like, you probably should have traded Malloy at peak value, or you should get him up here and at least see what he's got. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably the next move is to get Malloy in there and play Canna more at first base. But again, it's gonna take a little bit. I don't know that Spencer Torkelson gets a free ride, but I can understand the perspective that he gets treated with kid gloves a little bit, like he's done something. We're not going to pinch hit for him, but we're going to pinch hit for Kerry Carpenter. I totally get why that rubs people the wrong way. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me either. When Spencer Torkelson is not swinging the bat well and you're going to let him stay in there, but Spencer Torkelson has proved a little bit. It hasn't all been erased, the fact that he was on a 40 home run pace for most of the summer last year and hit really well from June to the end of the year. But again, it just comes back to, the farm system doesn't have that much more than this in the hitting department. They have tons more pitching coming. And that's kind of the, the thing that we've been banking on is that, they'll be able to support themselves and, keep the rotation strong through injuries, that they'll have Jackson Jobe coming sometime this summer, that they should be able to continue to build good bullpens. And we've seen Chris Fetter do a lot with a little plenty of times. So we're not worried about the pitching side of things. And so you should have access to be able to go get a bat if you want at some point. But teams aren't selling, they're not necessarily selling top guys for prospects until July. And I don't know if the Tigers, are going to be in a position to buy. They've kind of got to prove that that the guys that they've kind of based this around are going to be worthwhile. Because if Colt Keith can't do it and Spencer Torkelson can't do it, well, then you got to start from, almost from scratch with the offense next year again. You've got Riley and Carp, and what else, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, but
so they've got to make this work. And if they can't make it work, then we can firebomb the whole thing and start from scratch, because that's kind of where they're going to be at.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, Joe makes a point and Deadly Ninja point. It's like, losing 2-1 gets old. Scoring one run like this it gets old. The fact that they couldn't, if you're looking at stats for the evening that stand out for the Tigers, here's the thing. Like, you look at runners in scoring position, you're 1 for 9. And they had the bases loaded twice. Twice in one game. I think it was Saturday against the Yankees. What the hell? And especially in that right field porch, and you couldn't take advantage of it with. No, that was infuriating. That was no doubt one of the most infuriating series, because it's one thing, like, they were making a big deal that Aaron Judge got thrown out of a game. Who cares? You know what? Who cares? The ump's stuck. And it's just.
He spent the whole series whining and didn't really get that bad of a call on him the entire time. So sit down.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, Aaron Boone, all they do is whine. Like, I can't stand. I'm sorry. You know what?
No.
I hate when
they play the Yankees are like this for sure.
Good Lord, shut the fuck up. Sorry, my language. Pardon my language, but just seriously, shut up. Good Lord, like, you have every advantage in the world to you. You have you have literally 800 media sources that you can go to. Good, man, because just stop whining. Jeez, all the time. It's just so. You know what? You're better than the Tigers are. You have Juan Soto. You have all these players. So stop. God, it's just like enough is enough. Like, Soto was, is this the NBA where you're constantly having but no doubt, the Yankees are a better, far superior team, and for them to whine that much about it, come on, what you're getting at. But anyways,
and let me just point out too. Let's see, R1VJ4. I beg to differ. Keith would have been in the minors, just like Baltimore did to Jackson Holiday. Baltimore handled that like idiots. And that's one of the dumbest things I've seen from them. Like, if you're going to call up your 20-year-old top prospect in baseball for 10 games, for 10 games. That's it. He gets a 10-game look, and you're like, no, I can't do it. I mean, it just made no sense to me. I mean, maybe they just wanted to get acclimated and get to know his way around the locker room. I don't know. But the big difference is that Jackson Holliday struck out like 50% of the time in those 10 games. So it doesn't really compare to Colt Keith's struggles. I mean, Jackson Holliday was lost, and they decided they weren't even going to give him time to, just settle in. So he got like the whole thing and the whole speech from his manager at AAA, and, you're going to the big leagues, kid, make us proud, blah, blah, blah. And then, you show up on the bus in the rain 11 days later, right back there, like, oh, how was it? It's like, oh, well, I suck, So I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of thing where if you communicate with the player and you let them know, like, I mean, maybe that's all it was. They just wanted to get him some exposure so that when he comes up next, later on in the summer, there's nothing new. And if that was the reason, I can understand it. But if they just panic called him up and dropped him after 10 games, like, what are you trying to do to the kid's confidence? Didn't make much sense from the outside.
No.
But Colt Keith isn't striking out. Colt Keith's strikeout rate is like 16.5%, and his walk rate is 8.4%. The approach is not the problem. He's just not getting enough barrels, and he's hit into some bad luck.
Very bad luck. So get into Toledo. So Toledo this week split the series with Columbus. They have, in terms of like just stand-up performances, one performance did stand out to me a little bit was Dylan Dingler, who went 5 for 15 with 2 home runs. He had 1 walk to 6 strikeouts. He has been hitting the ball better as of late. The strikeouts are dipping a little bit, but nothing to like. It's just intriguing enough, but to keep you intrigued, but nothing to, it's progress. It's progress. And then Young 6 for 21, a home run, 2 double, triple, and 5 RBIs, 5 walks to 7 strikeouts. But another guy who had a really interesting week was Big B, 6 walks, 6 strikeouts, 5 for 20. But overall, in terms of pitching too, it was just kind of like and maybe it's just because Columbus has got some decent. Columbus is decent, but in terms of like starter wise, outside of Brian Sammons, who's been pitching out of his mind, Matt Manning 5 innings. Yeah, he's been pitching better. He's been pitching better, pretty good all season. Matt Manning 5 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks on 6 strikeouts. But then, beyond that, Brandon, was just pretty much a quiet week in terms of an offensive standpoint for the Mud Hens.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'll bring up Kiter. Kiter had another good outing, but he still wastes too many pitches. Still hasn't really learned to be efficient enough and to command the fastball enough to, to go out there and think you could, run him into the major leagues and go 5 or 6 innings. He finally gave up a home run, so that hurt his FIP, which had looked amazing. And then, obviously Ty Madden got called up and just got absolutely shellacked the first time out. But, I'm not particularly concerned about that. There's a lot of adjustment that goes on in that one day when you get called up to, the next day when you're, having to start at a new level with new catching. I mean, he knows Dingler, obviously, but new game planning, the whole situation. I'm not, I didn't take anything away from Madden getting hammered that game, other than that he just did not look comfortable and couldn't settle in much. So, the pitching should come around because the Tigers develop pitching pretty well, but until I I just keep coming back to, if you can't get Keith and Torkelson to hit at the major league level, calling for Young and all these other guys to come up, they weren't on that level. Colt Keith is a better hitter at AAA than Jace Young is right now. That doesn't mean major league careers won't go a different way than that, but you got to find answers, because if they can't find answers for those guys,
no,
the hitting department's going to need a real axing this off season.
Yeah, they're going to start cleaning house. So as far as any update, Joe wants to know about Eddie's Leonard. No, there's not been an update as of yet. They're like last medical injury. I checked the update because I get a link for it. Last I checked, nothing, no rehab assignment in Lakeland or anything. Brendan White, by the way, did go back to Lakeland along with Garrett Hill down there. So they've been pitching. We'll get to them in a little while, but nothing on Leonard. There is a good chance that Urshela will be starting this week in Toledo at some point. Either it's possibly as soon as tomorrow, but
Leonard was like an oblique, so you kind of figure at least like 4 to 6 kind of a thing.
Probably maybe towards the end of the month. I think you would probably see something.
I think Urshela, Kreidler's finger, probably about the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Like but when Gio comes back, you know what? There's gonna be some sort of roster cut there. I think there has to be some sort of like move that to happen, but I'm not gonna speculate until it gets closer to that.
We could
I
both
don't
say
know.
Zach McKinstry probably needs to go
Yeah.
at some point, just because he's the
Yeah, we could
easiest
agree
one
on
to
that.
get rid of. Yeah, he just doesn't do anything for you. If you can find any utility hitter who's a little bit better offensively and can back up shortstop, credibly, you should probably do that for sure. I don't know if who is it, Ryan Unroe? I don't think he's going to be the guy.
No, not
The
that
guy
guy. I mean, there's
no. So yeah. I mean, there are options for small moves that they should be able to make. And yeah, if things keep going this way, yeah, you can try Malloy, but like this is all just moving chairs around on the Titanic if you don't get Keith and Torkelson.
Yeah, I'm sure if we look at the waiver wire too, there's some guy out there that they're maybe probably looking at and going from there. But let's move on. Let's move on to
the waiver wire.
I was gonna say Scott Harris is a big fan of that. He's like the guy who rotates the utility, the rotary or the dirt, whatever that term is. I can't think of it right now.
Yeah, or he rotates the stock. Let's put it in a way that maybe Jason Benetti would. It's like every time someone goes on waivers, an alert hits Scott Harris's phone and he bursts awake at 4 a.m. Do I want this guy?
Yeah. He calls Jeff Greenberg in the middle of the night. And so, but here's okay. So let's go into what's going on with
bring back Buddy Kennedy. No.
Yeah, Buddy Kennedy. We mentioned earlier, Gage Workman, 3 home runs this week. Again, he's the only one in the system that's hitting home runs. I mean, like just, you know what? Look, the whole redemption. I'm here for the whole Gage Workman redemption tour because look, the bottom line is, I admit we put him off for top 30. We've kind of been I don't say dismissive, but it was just you hear like, well, he's not taking to this, not taking to that. Now he is, and so it's like, hey, I'll be the first to admit, hi, I'm Rogelio. I was wrong about Gage Workman, and
and the thing is, you weren't wrong. You evaluated him correctly at the time.
Yeah,
and the player changed. That's what you hope happens. It's okay.
Yeah. So, and I'm glad I'm wrong about it. No, you're right. That's a good way to put it. But as far as like Erie goes, the rest of the offense is concerned, it's not really much to. The only thing, I mean, even on the pitching side of things were Jackson Jobe had to leave the game, obviously with a hamstring issue. So,
what was he at 34 or 35 batters straight without a hit? He was just dealing. I mean, he was, it's pretty hard not to watch that and not just be like, look, you just take exactly what he's throwing here and you put it in a major league context. He's ready. He's ready to go. He's more ready at least than Reese Olson was. That's for sure.
Mr. Magno with the comment of the evening, dude should get a freaking buy a car for the waiver wire.
Yeah. Oh, we should, we were neglectful last week because we didn't really talk about the bullpen because Pettit had been doing okay, but Andrew Magno is actually having a really good year so far and looking good. So that's a good sign. One of the few kind of pure relief guys down there who could actually come up and get it done this year. So
he hasn't been walking, and his walks have dropped. Yeah, Magno's Andrew's been dropping. Yeah, he's dropped his walks. Lockhart had a bad week. I mean, it was kind of weird to see him kind of fall back to earth a little bit, but still, Troy Melton had a strong start, 4 innings, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. I was kind of concerned. Chris and I were talking about the strikeouts might be a slow progress, but he was like, screw you. I'm going to go and strike out. He did pretty well against a Bowie team that's not, offensively speaking, one of the better teams in the Eastern League.
Yeah. I mean, they've got some. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that's a really good hitting team, and they handled them pretty well. Yeah, I mean, I think Ham's got a little bit of work to do, as far as the breaking ball goes and the changeup still. But I mean, it's a really good, just nasty, flat as hell fastball at the top of the zone. And for hitters at that level, seeing something that dialed in with the fastball, and he's not walking anybody. Fastball commands maybe not maybe not a 50 yet, but it's pretty close already. So yeah, Jaden Ham pretty good. And I would expect, I don't know when you guys think about this, but I would expect that by the end of the May, he's probably moving up. Maybe maybe you get the Brycino Clark, McGonigal call up from Lakeland to West Michigan. There'll be a rotation starting to happen here sometime in the next few weeks, I would assume.
Yeah, I think by Memorial Day you'll see it. I think you'll see Jaden Ham in a Seawolves uniform by the end of this month. And Ham looked a little human this week, though. I mean, he hit Cam Cole. I think was it Cam Collier? I'm trying to think of it. I think he hit a hit. Yeah. Because whatever, I don't know what it is about when they play in Dayton. Ohio, Brandon.
Yeah.
There's some weird voodoo thing that happen in there. I don't know what it is. It's just so strange every time they go down. Historically speaking, since I started doing this, they've always played weird in Dayton. And his stat line this week, though, I mean, he started 2 games, 6 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, which was weird to see. He was named the Midwest League Pitcher of the Month in the month of April, rightfully so. But him and Garrett Burhan, by the way, has been pitching better as of late, too. So it's the West Michigan, like Erie, offensively speaking, outside of Luke Gold, and Roberto Campos actually had a really he had a home run off of Rhett Lauder, one of the better prospects in the game. That was his first professional home run he gave up, and Campos smoked it, like absolutely tore it up. And he also had a double in that series too. And he had a overall, I think he's been hitting the ball better. There's a lot of things with Campos, Brandon, that I mean, on the week, he had the best week among any he was 8 for 16 this week, 4 strikeouts. But I mean, with a home run, double, and a triple too. That triple was, I mean, you know, the one in the right field corner was maybe a little outfield guy, but still, Campos is hitting a lot better.
Yeah, I think he does look pretty well. You know, nobody's getting that excited because he's still striking out, you know, way too much. But again, he's going to be 21. Like that, you know, that's the thing to keep in mind. Like you start to get frustrated because, you know, we've been hearing about him for 3 years now and stuff, but he's just a kid still. So, you know, he's got to make the jump to Erie at least this year and show that he's not going to be absolutely overwhelmed. And we all know he needs to start pulling some more balls in the air and tapping into that power. But, you know, at least things are trending in the right direction right now. And when guys get off to a good start, nothing like earth shattering, like, oh my God, this guy's like, you know, completely leveled up. You just kind of have to, you just take it and say, okay, that's good. You know, let's see what else you got. And, you know, that's kind of where Campos is at. We'll just, we'll kind of ride with him. And if the strikeouts keep coming down and he's making a lot more hard contact like he has so far, you know, we might be in business, but you know, you can't really go getting too excited about it yet. Cause I still see 28% K rate down there. So not ideal.
Yeah.
But again, he wouldn't even be graduated from college yet if he was, you know, if he had been born here and went to play college. So just got to give it a little bit more time.
Baby steps. And Dylan Smith, by the way, is still trying to figure out Dylan Smith. And I don't know, I expected a little more out of him right now, but again, maybe in due time.
Andy Pages. Sorry, I'm just looking at that last comment. Like, Andy Pages would be nice. Or
you know what? You know what? Yeah. You know what? Look, if he ends up being Andy Pajas, another Cuban, that's fine by me. Reyes, that's a great comp. Thank you, Reyes. Reyes always Reese knows his stuff. So I expected the head honcho or Prospects Live to know his stuff. So but
they're pretty good over there.
They got a good crew over there. No, absolutely. No, but it's again, and we'll get to Lakeland here in a second. But the one thing I want to leave off with West Michigan as they are coming home this week. I believe they are playing. So I haven't gone out to a West Michigan game yet. They're taking on Fort Wayne, and so Saturday's prospect night. It's Cole Keith bobblehead night. So for those, for people who want Cole Keith, that,
See, so get those things now while they're cheap, and then later you'll sell for huge profit when Cole Keith goes nuts in the second half.
Not to mention too, the reason why I mention that is also because the next 2 weekends, the next 2 weeks, the Whitecaps are on the road. They're at Peoria, and they're also at Lake County. So if you're going to get a chance to see before the roster changeover, because I think there's going to probably be a roster changeover, which leads us to Lakeland, then this is your good opportunity to see so, because the Lakeland offense. So Lakeland's over 500. They're hitting the ball really well. You're seeing Jose Briseño just kind of mashing it. It was good to see Bennett Lee come back too from injury, and give the Tigers another catcher to think about for in terms of depth purposes. But it was Jose De La Cruz. I know his numbers. He's striking out a lot. I know he's striking out Brandon. But I know. I know you and I. You know what I mean? Like, you just use enough hope. You're like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean, when you just, it's those Titanic jacks, like you see a guy hit a ball like that and you can't help but be like, oh, God, especially because, it's not like he's always like struck out a ton, he's just always hit the ball on the ground like a ton. So if you could see him launching it a little bit more, you could start to get excited. But what is he? I think he's 24 now too, isn't he? 22, something like that. Yeah, he's only 22. All right, well maybe I shouldn't feel so bad. But no, he's still striking out a ton.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, yeah, I mean Brett Callahan, to leave aside the big boys, McGonigal, Clark, Brett Callahan swung the bat pretty well. Jarvis has swung the bat pretty well. Cole Turney actually has come back and continued to pretty much keep raking at West Michigan. He's a guy lower tier who probably really isn't on the prospect list right yet, but is interesting at least. So, there are some like peripheral guys who are at least interesting, but yeah, I mean, it's still kind of coming down to Bracino and McGonigal and Clark down there. And those are the guys you're going to be depending on. The complex league is getting underway. So, we're all optimistic that we're going to see, Paul Wilson, Blake Dickerson, some of those guys, some of the prep draft class from last year in action here pretty soon. And if some of those guys do well, they'll be the first to come up and fill some of those voids at Lakeland when that happens. But
not to mention, I do want to mention Samuel Gill. Samuel Gill is only 19. I mean, that's something. The only reason why I want to mention him is because if there's a lot of, in terms of like guys that are from he was in complex league last year at 298. Prior to that, he was in the Dominican Summer League. So that transition from the Summer League to the complex league to Lakeland has been, for some of those international players, a very hard transition. And Gill is only, again, he's 19. He just turned 19 in November. So that he's young.
Yeah.
To be in Lakeland. So that's a good thing.
Yep. And holding his own. Okay. So yeah, and I mean, you do have Wenzel, like if you believe there's some magical curse where, no one born south of Florida, can come through the Tiger system and hit, Wenzel's at least finally proven that wrong. We could say Willie Adamas proved that was wrong a while back too, but at least there's there's Gill and there's a couple other guys who might be coming in this draft class, but now we're getting into the teenagers, and I'd love to talk about Chris Rodriguez as well, but we'll just save that. We'll save that till we see him.
Yeah. By the way, we did get a question. How concerned are we with Bracino mashing balls with a negative launch angle?
I mean, it's not going to work, when he gets to the show. But he looks like he can make enough adjustments to me to be fine. I mean, he's on these balls. There's a little bit of a swing adjustment that probably needs to go on there, but I don't know. He should at least be crushing the stakes without too much issue, because he's seeing the ball well, sees the ball well, doesn't chase, and consistently puts the barrel on it. So yeah, I'm sure that's something they'll be working on. And if they decide to fast track him and, they decide they just don't really see it as a catcher and they move him to first base and move him up to West Michigan, you'll see all that emphasis, be turned on even more. When when the young catchers, there's so much else to learn. It almost feels like they don't even focus on their hitting until they're, at Erie. It didn't even really feel like Dylan Dingler made, any strides or really even was trying anything different until just last summer, because there's plenty else to learn. You have less time to work on your hitting than everyone else does. And the organization is focused more on getting you to that point where they know you can play defense. And then it's like, all right, can this guy, refine things enough to hit 220 with some power? And, that's probably the best we can hope for Dingler. And so far he's looked a little bit more apt to do that, at least. But there's also the fact that, Carson Kelly doesn't look apt to do that. And you just kind of figure like, well, all right, if we're going to watch this crap, we should bring these guys up and get them their experience and start working with them. But the fundamental problem remains the same. There probably isn't going to be an easy fix coming, and they're going to depend on these guys. There's no hitting prospect in the minor leagues better than Colt Keith was last year. So no,
not even close. I mean, that's the concerning thing a little bit. That's the thing that that gives you pause. I mean, Lenny Henning made it sound like it was very, very dire straits, and I understand why, and it is to a certain extent. But
organizationally, it is kind of dire. Yeah, but
it is okay. But I don't
feel that dire. Yeah,
I was gonna say this. Look, I'm gonna give this till June. I'm gonna give this till like middle of June. As far as somebody coming out, I mean, Bracino gives you hope, but yeah, I mean, when the weather gets a little warmer and we're still seeing these kind of low batting averages and a lot of strikeout. I mean, the strikeouts again, a batter is what they are. They can see the ball, they're not. Just as simple as that. But I'm gonna give it till middle of summer, and then I'm gonna wait. But before we really end this, Brandon, I think that the biggest takeaway Lakeland wise. Let me get to pitching too. I didn't really talk about Lakeland's pitching because
Yeah.
there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of arms down there that are just kind of like their bullpen blew a couple leads during the series against Clearwater, but you have as far as like the Tom Bruce made his first getting his first professional save, struck out the side, looked pretty impressive doing so. Pitched
Yep.
3 scoreless innings, but it is
throwing 98.
90, yeah. The was it the I can never say his name right. The guy with the starts with Z H-I
Iker. Oh yeah, Iker.
yeah.
Iker
Too bad. Yeah, he's a little bit of command issue, but again, the Zach Lee, it's just there's a
kind of an older pickup, like a kind of a developmental project, but he had a really, really good start. What was it, Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah.
And then Yosper Sanchez is kind of seems like sort of their closer, and kind of has the fastball for that too. So there's some power fastballs in that bullpen that a lot of guys at that level haven't seen. There's still a lot of, like you said, there's still a lot of control issues. There's still a lot of things to work on breaking ball and changeup wise, all that sort of thing. But there are arms down there that are worth watching. And I mean, this shouldn't surprise anyone. The Tigers are doing a way better job drafting interesting arms and developing them. So yeah, which is why we're not terribly focused on those guys yet until they move up a little bit and we kind of see what they've been able to do with them. But the raw material down there is pretty good. And they took a bunch of guys that we liked in the draft as far as raw material goes. And then they traded 500,000 of IFA bonus pool money for Blake Dickerson, who's another prep draft pick, left-hander from last year. So those guys are going to be interesting to watch this summer, but all those guys are very long away. And right now, after covering the minor leagues all these years, we're finally seeing, where people are, like even people who are interested are now just like, no, we've got to get the Tigers right. And I understand.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear, they don't want to hear about, they don't want to hear about, this guy might be ready in 2027. And, there's some of that going around too, which is understandable.
I mean, that's what we should end the podcast with, really, is just like the next, they have 2 more games and then they have Houston coming in. And Houston is a team that on paper might look deceiving, but Houston has been playing better as of late. And it's a team that can still hit. So tomorrow, I mean, the pitching matchup tomorrow goes Maeda against Allen, which could be favorable if the Tigers can get off to the right start. But then Wednesday, I feel bad because Olsen taking on Tanner Beebe, and I don't know, that guy, I feel like he's going to carve up the Tigers too. It's just like it doesn't get any easier from here the rest of the week.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, you're just not going to see that many bad starters. Things are going to change at some point this summer because we'll start to see the attrition taking its toll, and that no one wants to hear my like worm boy reasons why the Tigers might hang around and make an interesting run, but that's kind of it. Is that other teams are going to suffer attrition just like we will as the season goes on, and the Tigers are more equipped to replace those guys, especially the pitching staff. But it doesn't going to mean anything if a couple guys here don't start hitting. That's for sure.
Yeah, you got to start producing at some point, and that's where hopefully the Tigers right now are just a game over 500. I do want to end the podcast with the Minnesota Twins, who just had a 12-game winning streak snapped, and that is a team that we've talked about this. Chris and I have talked about this with Uper a little bit, but I wanted to get your thoughts on where the Twins could be, like in terms of even where the Twins can be going forward with like just the amount of injuries they've suffered and everything. This is a team that doesn't even have that much in terms of pitching wise. It's not that deep, but man, it's just that the little fundamental, like the little things are getting done, Brandon.
Yeah. And I mean, we kind of watched how they built that team. I mean, they've taken a lot of hitters and they've done a pretty good job developing a lot of those hitters. And so even when, I don't know what is the problem with that team, that stadium, that training staff. I don't know what it is, or if it's just truly this atrocious bad luck. But Byron Buxton is always injured. Royce Lewis has barely gotten started, and he's already had like major knee surgery. It just always seems to go that way for them. But they made the moves they needed to do to get, like Pablo Lopez and bring in a couple pitchers. And, they're pretty good at developing decent enough pitching to put around that. And they're very different kind of from the Tigers that way. The Tigers are kind of built to pitch and pitch you to death. I really wish we had a Emmanuel Clase. I wish we had the kick-ass stopper at the back of this thing, and they still lack that. But the Tigers are set that way and can't get the hitting right. And for the longest time, the Twins had all these bats and couldn't get the pitching right. Well, they made a deal for a really good starting pitcher. They got Juan Duran. They got, who was it? Griffin Jacks is down there. I don't know, a bunch of others. It's not a bad group. And they've kind of pieced it together, with different arm angles and all that sort of thing. So it's not like they've just invested a ton of money in their pitching staff. They went all in on the bats, like a lot of us kind of thought the Tigers should have done for years when they were drafting Manning and Mize and all those guys so high. And and they made that strategy work. So, do I think the Twins are an absolute juggernaut? No. Do I think the Guardians are this good? No, not really. Like any of these teams could be like 80 to 85 win teams as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, right now the Twins are rolling for sure.
Yeah, I mean, tonight's Steven Wood Richardson, who manhandled the Tigers, went out and pitched his best start, career high, 8 strikeouts and 6 innings of 1 hit ball and 1 walk. And this is a guy who when Toronto had him in their system because they got him from the Mets I forgot what deal it was. They got him in. I've been watching this guy for a long time. This is the Wood Richardson who I thought it was going to be the next future ace, because he came up. He was out of high school when he got drafted, and he has been this guy out of high school in Texas, Sugar Land, Texas, just been pitching better and pitching with much more confidence. And again, this is where against Seattle, this is not a slouch team by any stretch of the imagination tonight.
Yep. And, and didn't necessarily have like the best breaking stuff, was never like the big time strikeout artist in the minor leagues, but kind of looks like he started to figure it out for sure. And what is he? Yeah, he's only 23.
Fastball.
So.
Yeah, fastball, changeup primarily, and he used to have a slider and curve, but he's been primarily using those 2 pitches, mixing the slider to keep him honest, and it's been working. So, but yeah. On that note, Brandon, is there anything else you wanted to add before we get out of here?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's where we're at. I'm all for hearing suggestions for cheap ways to improve the team, but I'm just going to keep bringing it back to the fact that you're not going to recover from this if both Colt Keith and Spencer Torkelson get sent down and have to sit down there for a month, and you don't know what are you exactly looking for, before you're going to call them up either. If it comes to this and a month from now, Torkelson's still just sucking and not doing any damage, then it needs to be like organization wide, like all hands on deck. They've got to come up with some kind of a plan for him and put it into action. But as far as Keith goes, just chill, just try to hang in there with him. He should be all right. And I mean, dump McKinstry, get Urshela back here, send Parker Meadows down, so at least he can at least swing the bat every day and hopefully get his timing back and figure some things out. Those are the kind of things you can do, but there isn't a move here that's gonna get to the Tigers to the playoffs if the guys that they kind of banked on don't get it done. I just don't see it. So that's where I'm at.
That's where I'm at too. I mean, if from month to month Torkelson's not doing it, then you have to do something. And so I don't know if the Tiger fans can wait a month. I mean, right now they're not off to a good start in May, so hopefully the shift gets corrected. So please, we haven't. It's been a while. I'm not trying to I try not to beg for donations, but if you would like, if you so kind to donate, please do so. The link is in our show description. You can donate a couple ways. You can donate through Venmo, or you can do it through our PayPal, and you go through our Patreon too as well. And I'm gonna start putting some extra stuff out there. I have been putting the extra content we do. All those articles, by the way, are completely 100% free. There's no paywall or anything behind it. We just write the articles, provide the feed the Google machine. So if you'd like to donate a few bucks, that'd be great. That way we can, for example, the next couple of weeks, I would like to go to Erie or West Michigan for that matter. Those things cost money, and we would appreciate all the support. And also, if you haven't followed us on Twitter yet, please do so. And we're getting close to a milestone number that we're getting very, very close to passing up. And so Also, one last thing I wanted to mention, Brandon, what are your thoughts of the jersey, the City Connect jerseys?
Oh, well, as you know, you're more of like the jersey and hat dude than I would be. I don't.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. There's just a rack of hats back there. But actually, like compared to all the other City Connect jerseys, I thought the Tigers was like maybe even top third. Not bad at all. Like I was expecting, some complete atrocity, and they look fine. I don't really, like I don't know what to make of the hat. I know a million people have said this, that it looks like, any Detroit hat that you would get at a gas station, and I can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
There's some elements to the design that seem like kind of just mid and amateurish a little bit, but like the flair and the little details they added, I thought were cool. And I'm 49 years old. This is not for me, so I'm gonna shut the fuck up and not bitch and moan about it.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
look,
It doesn't matter that much. The Old English D and the classic Tigers uniform is as good as you're gonna do. But marketing and we want to sell more jerseys and give things a fresh look. The players seem to like it. It's all good to me.
Here's the thing: the City Connect jerseys was designed to be different from the normal home and away jerseys. That was the purpose of it. Do I think the Detroit hat is a little lazy? Yeah, I mean, at the same time, I'm not exactly. I like the Star Trek font because I am a Star Trek fan. So it is to me. It looks like Star Trek. Bottom line.
It does kind of,
yeah. I like the patch.
The J.J. Abrams Star Trek, maybe even more.
Maybe a little more. Maybe 80s. When they kind of went away from
Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan. Yeah, I think we went through that. But I like the patch. I like the M patch. I like the 313. I like that. I like the way the number looks. Look,
yeah,
I know that this is the Motor City and they're looking for other things, but the tire tracks and all that stuff, like, it's different. It's completely different from what the Tigers have done. The Tigers have never done anything. I'm sorry, like, no offense, but when it comes to the caps, their hats have not changed at all, and that's fine. People love that, and I get that. But it's
iconic, But it is, iconic. But they don't experiment, and they don't. Well, and when they do, they just make the D bigger and piss us all off because it just looks weird.
Yeah, except the only time the D's looked bigger and looked good was in the 70s when they had the away hats. But here's the thing. Here's what you can do. You can not buy a product and be fine with it. But to rip with, like, just here's the premise. You show the team you don't like it by not buying it. As simple as that.
Well,
and
it's fine if people want to be annoyed too, because I mean they shove this crap down everyone's throat too, and it's just like, this is all just a fucking marketing scheme. It's like it's whatever, But if people are into it, cool. Yeah, if you're not into it, I totally get that as well.
Yeah, to each your own. Like, honestly, it doesn't. I mean, to me, it's funny, but when I got the I'll tell you about it off air, but I got an email from the Tigers about calling me an influencer about it, and I'm getting a little package for it. And look, I'm not saying they bought and paid my vote. They didn't. I'll just say this: the hat is like the hat is just is what it is. They could do better, and
I'm surprised they don't do sneakers. Like, it seems like the sneakerheads would be who they should aim all this at more than I don't know exactly who it is aimed at, but I'm surprised they don't get the sneakers going. Yeah, playing 90 degrees in a dark blue and black jersey could be interesting. It's true, but maybe they don't tear away, so Riley won't be able to run immediately to his shift at, Chippendales or whatever the hell it is today.
No, I agree with that. Ninja Beast. Slim City does look like he was sitting after that promo. Demetrius wants to know real quick, since 2017 Tigers have been in the bottom 5. I mean, actually, to be fair, let's put it more into 2020 because the 27, like, that's a completely
different. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, that's a lot of responsibility. Like, if you're going back that way, that goes back to Dombrowski. Then, I mean, if you're going to be realistic about the
Dombrowski, some of the hitting coaches they had, Avila, Gardenhire,
last couple of seasons. The last couple of seasons. Also, you can blame a little bit of that. It goes a long way. It goes. Look, the Tigers haven't spent the Tigers do anything to spend and get an extra bat? No. Should they have done that? Absolutely. We'll just leave it at that, because the farm system, as much as we watched the farm system, we knew it wasn't going to be the end all and the all. And I never will ever say that, because the system still has ways to go. So,
but again, like the core, it has to come from within, because they're not going to go, sign, 2 Carlos Correa, level contracts or whoever else you want to, Trey Turner or whatever. Should have got Corey Seager, clearly, but I don't think that was a possibility. But yeah, I mean, if there was somebody else out there, though, I think we would have all been about it. Tyler O'Neill might have been a nice pickup, but this team needs an infield. Like, this infield sucks offensively. I'm not that worried about the outfield. People were suggesting the Marlins might trade Jazz Chisholm, and it's like, I mean, that's okay. He's fine. He's been a pretty good player for a couple seasons, but yeah, again, they need a goddamn infield. And if it's not Young and Keith and Torkelson, and then you figure out whatever you're going to do at shortstop, then we're cooked, as my buddy in New Zealand would say. So, and then you're talking, oh, well, should we trade all these pitchers? And then everything just sucks,
Yeah.
Job and Scooble for Jackson Holiday, bro, and Colby Mayo.
Yeah, that'll happen. That will happen. I mean, but Deadly Ninja Beast said,
I hate this timeline.
Yeah. Deadly Ninja Beast said it correctly. Not spending on this sport without a salary cap is disheartening. And he's right. And the Tigers should spend a little bit, but I mean,
but they should have done it. But they should have done it 2 or 3 years ago when there were actually good free agent classes, unfortunately, and they didn't.
Yeah.
They chickened out then and just tried half measures with Javi, and tried to make it, like, well, we're doing something. We're going to trade for Austin Meadows, and Alavila was under enormous pressure that year. Obviously, they didn't even let him run the team. He had to run all the big decisions through Sam Menzin and AJ Hinch. And I think we know of that trio who was running the show, and finally cleared house here, but. We're in year 2 for those guys. You probably get 3 years. But the problem is obvious. They've got to develop hitters, and they've got to figure out how to get the hitters at the major league level to do a lot better job making adjustments and figure this thing out. Because if they don't, there's just nothing magical that's going to happen to can save this situation, unfortunately.
So, by the way, thank you, Dan. There's
a depressing note. Let's end on that.
Well, no, yeah, Dan Fernandez, who was in the chat, gave us a couple of good questions, some statements. He gave us a donation. So I want to you, Dan.
Your chat is nice. Your chat is actually elite. Actually,
some
of the best sets of questions I've ever seen.
Off the Frickers building.
No, and you know what? I will say this: our YouTube chat between Motor City Metrics and Tiger Minor League Report, I love these guys. I really do. Kevin, Ninja Bees, Richard, a lot of these guys who were regulars, old BK, always making it fun. This is what makes it worth it. Like, honestly, this is what makes it worth it. Joe, before I forget anybody, Walter, this is what makes it worth it. Like, honestly, like if there's one thing that Kristen and I talked about this all the time is when we get random people who come up to us when they recognize us, which still to me is bizarre when I'm late at a game, like, hey, you guys, Tiger Minor Report. And I'm like, and I don't even have the shirt on or anything. And just like somebody randomly comes up to me and says something, and I get scared. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't owe child support. No, but
I'm not your father.
I'm not your father. No. It's and Dan, by the way, Dan, the good comment right there.
Yeah, if it is much, it is better. Yeah.
But no, either way, it's just to me, this is what makes it worth it. Honestly, I love spending time talking baseball with people who love talking baseball and not have to be and have an intelligent conversation about it. So, yeah, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. We'll be posting this tomorrow on Spotify. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, where you listen to the podcast. And we're a proud partner of the Believe Network. So check us all out. Brandon, you got anything you want to pimp on blessyouboys.com?
No, pretty much everything I just said about the Tigers offense, I wrote in an article that came out this afternoon. So if you want to rehash that and get more annoyed, feel free. But I don't know. I'm going to try to break down a little bit of Mr. Torkelson sometime this week and try to compare with his ASU work and see what the hell's going on there, if we can figure anything out. But I wouldn't promise anything, guys. I'm probably not going to solve this. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go to tigersmlreport.com. Chris and I teamed up and did an article on Torkelson yesterday, and there's a Gage Workman piece that I did on Saturday or Friday. I can't remember, Friday or Saturday. I wanted to beat Lynn Henning out there to do that. So, and then Chris broke down Ty Madden's ugly AAA start. So, and also there's something about Jack Flaherty and what he's been able to do was establishing his fastball and his knuckle curve, which before, Brandon, you probably knew this, he was throwing it more to righties than lefties. Now he's doing an equal distribution. which I think is helping his fastball. So,
and Casey Mize should also take note and use his knuckle curve more that way.
yes.
And
pitch is good.
And he should also trust his damn fastball a little bit more. I feel like Casey Mize doesn't realize like that his fastball is, 40% better than it was in 2021, 22. So air it out a little bit, Casey. Use the knuckle curve a little bit more. Yeah. But yeah, the pitching continues to just cruise along. So yeah, all I can tell the fans is you should just keep screaming at the Tigers themselves. Don't scream at me. Yeah. I can't do anything.
Yeah, scream at Scott Harris. Scream at do yourself a favor. Scream at Scott Harris. Please.
Yeah, I mean you're and Chris Illich, you're more than welcome. You should definitely make your voice heard on that because they've been promising a lot of things. When did the rebuild end according to Chris Illich? Like 3 years ago?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he's full of crap on that. Yeah, there we go. So
among other things. Yep.
All right, we'll talk to you next week, everybody. Have a good week, everyone.
Night, everybody. Thanks.